You're welcome back. This is the Pulse here on Joy News on a Friday afternoon. Now, if you run any business related to transport operations, such as commercial transport, business, fleet management, organizing, mechanic, or even a driving school, or an institutional bus or transport such as school bus, pay attention because the National Road Safety Authority says they will be imposing a regulatory fine of up to 5,000 penalty units if you fail to register with them. It is the enforcement of provisions in the Legislative Instrument 2468 that mandates the authority to keep a register of institutions providing road transport and related services. Shortly, we'll be joined by the Director of Regulation, Inspection and Compliance at the NRSA for details of this. First, let's get to know those who will be affected by this, measure. And so what you have we'll bring you that graphics on your screens very shortly so that you understand who is affected by the implementation of this new LI that is seeking to get these vehicles registered with the National Road Safety Commission. So we have commercial road transport operators for passengers and for goods, ride-hailing transport companies, that's Uber, boats, and the rest, transport departments and units of ministries, departments, and agencies, that's MMDAs. These are government institutions, and they are also, affected by this regulation. There's also the transport department units of private companies, for example, Multimedia Group, institutional bus services, including school bus services, tie service centers, they are known as organizers, garages or vehicle maintenance centers. So road safety training service providers, my thinking is that these are driving schools, road safety related not-for-profit organizations, NGOs, road transport technology services providers. So LI 2468 is enforceable from March 30th, 2024. So already in session. Failure to register by any entity is liable to pay to the authority an administrative penalty of between 500 and 5,000 penalty units. This is for those who may fail compliance. This is what will awake you. Now let's get some understanding of this from Kwame Etuahene, Director of Regulation, Inspection and Compliance at the National Road Safety Authority. Kwame, a pleasure to have you here on the Pulse. Good afternoon.
My brother.
All right. So, what is the rationale behind this? There's a law, but why?
Well, thank you very much. I think I'm having difficulties putting on my video, but if you will indulge me, I still would want to proceed.
Sure, please.
Yeah, so when you look at the law that sets up the National Road Safety Authority, Act 992, it sets the authority up as the lead organization for road safety, regulatory authority for road transportation. So every institution providing transport or transport-related service must be known to the authority. In fact, that is the starting point for the authority's regulatory responsibility. So in 21, in LI 2468, which sets out to particularize the institutions, there are quite a number of registration and licensing regime. But Elton, to take us back.
Yes.
I think one of the key considerations that influenced the new law was the fact that there were institutional gaps in that the authority was used to doing a lot of advocacy and the likes, but the issue of institutional control, having to be able to keep a close eye transport-related services, there was always and has always been a gap as far as the road sector is concerned. If you move to aviation, you have Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, you have maritime for that sector, but in the road sector, there was always a gap. So government took the trouble or the initiative to cure the gap by ensuring that the authority plays that responsibility. This exercise is to essentially get to know who is on transport space, in order that we can influence their practices and ensure that existing standards are complied with. And that is why you have issued and repeated this notice over the period. So we are not dealing with just commercial transport operators.
Yes, of course, I see the list is quite broad, including even ministries, departments, and agencies. But the question really is, I mean, every vehicle in this country is registered, and the registration process happens at the DVLA. So this data is available. Why not just go take it instead of starting another data collection of your own?
No. So if I go to DVLA today, I want
conversation.
DVLA has a data of drivers and vehicles. But as to where these drivers and vehicles work or where they operate, I mean, that data is not available. You get what I mean?
Yes.
So our focus is on the institutions. And of course, but the institutions work with the base data you refer to.
Right.
So if I come to multimedia may go to register their vehicle or may have certain controls that requires that their drivers may have the minimum licensing requirement to be sure that the guy who runs transportation vehicles and drivers under the care of multimedia coming onto our road space have the requisite competencies to exert and exercise that level of control as required.
Okay.
And the same applies for transport departments of all ministries, departments, and agencies, with the exception of DVLA and the police. Even our department. The same for those providing tire care services and even mechanic shops. Because over the years, part of the exposure experience we've had is that these guys providing transport-related services do not often have the competencies for what they profess to do.
Right.
So who, on the part of the public, takes the trouble to ensure that they meet these minimum safety conditions? I mean, these are gaps that have existed for quite a while, and the whole intent is to try and cure these gaps.
So this from March this started, but why are you emphasizing today? Is it a case that you are now really enforcing it?
No. So Elton, the law came into force in 2023, and in keeping with practice, we cannot just begin to exact control. So as part of the implementation process, we have been engaging in quite a number of dissemination actions. And so we think that, in fact, the law provides a transitional period that for the commercial transport operators, they all have up to March 2025 to come into compliance. All others would have to be in compliance from March this year. But again, we think that as part of the roll-up, we may not be able to get to the full throttle, but we want to deal with the implementation gradually. So yes, we are starting with registration. At the appropriate time, we'll set timelines at which we'll begin to enforce what the law says we should do. And
there's punishment for those who fail or may fail to register.
Yes, I mean, that is the essence. If you have it doesn't serve any purpose. The intent is to be sure that those providing these services, the entities, have the requisite competencies to deliver these services that we think are of a public kind or are of a public nature. So yes, it's just like selling drugs. When you don't have the competency or the license to do so.
Right.
Road safety, road transportation, by large and far, is a public health concern. So we cannot just sit back and expect that business should continue to proceed as it has always been. So it's a measure to institute controls. And so if by the enforcement date, which will indicate over time, if entities fail to do what is required, would exact the necessary consequences as prescribed by law.
All right, Kwame, perhaps you may give me a breather. Let me get reaction to this measure that is, the law was passed in 2023. The Road Safety Authority is seeking to enforce it. The PRO, that's the Public Relations Officer with the GPRTU, Abbas Moro, joins me on phone. Mr. Moro, good afternoon and welcome to the Pulse.
Afternoon.
Also joining me is Wise Togbo, co-founder online ride-hailing group. Wise, good afternoon and welcome to the Pulse.
Good afternoon.
Right. So let me start with Mr. Abbas. So what is your reaction to this, this law that the Road Safety Authority is seeking to finally enforce?
Well, good afternoon to all viewers. I'm surprised where they want to start from. It looks like you are crying, you want to go to school, you have been admitted in a very good school, and you say you want to start from class 6. I believe you are going to mess up with everything. We have very good existing laws in our statutory books which are not working. By then they say they were in commission. Now you are in authority. And just that you had authority, you just forgotten about all these good laws which are not working. And they spoke about registering. Kindly ask him if they wanted to register free or at a fee. So it looks like they are interested in making money for themselves. And they are forgetting that by doing that, you are getting answers for a very serious economic question. Already we are trying. And you want us to register. We've all registered with DVLA. Our documents are there. We have documents indicating we have a qualified license. We have documents indicating this vehicle is allowed to commercial business. But what kind of registration do they want? If they are not interested in making money, they should tell us if it is free, if it is not free.
Mr. Abbas, we'll get a response very soon for you. Because
no, secondly.
Yes, please go on.
As I said earlier on, we have very good existing laws which are not working. You see hawkers taking over all the streets in all the regional capitals. Are they, excuse my language, are they blind to those things? Pedestrian walkways have been taken over. Are they blind to all these things? What are they doing about that?
That for me, I'm sure, is the responsibility of the assemblies.
Not only the assembly, they are in authority. They are also in authority. Some of the vehicles have been overspeeding on the highway, resulting in road crashes. What have they done about it to make sure we all go by the prescribed, accepted speed limit? Okay. What are they doing about it? These are some of the good laws in our existing statutory book. And they said they haven't seen all these things. They will just jump by bringing in new things. I'm sorry, I'm disappointed.
All right, hold it there.
I'm highly disappointed.
Mr. Abbas, we'll get your response very soon. Let me also pick the talks of Wise talk about why. So what is your reaction to what the road safety is seeking to enforce?
Thank you very much, my brother. I think anytime a government institution want to make sure others adhere to the law, it is those who need to adhere to the law that I find wanting. As my brother from the GPRT is saying, there are so many better and good policies that road safety would have put in place as an authority by now. I was going to ask them, since they are mentioning institutions and individuals that are going to be affected, have they got a filling station? Have they considered containers by the roadside? Have they considered them imported from wherever it's from? Because the road safety is not just the driver or the person taking the services or helping drivers go through this, like organizer or ITA, which they makes, or at what extent are they looking for the best to show road safety is comply. So we, at this point, are going to find ourselves wanting. You go to a point evening and a shop closed down, an organizer shop is closed down because it has not been registered. These are the people we are going to face. Meanwhile, the Registrar General Department had registered companies. DVL have registered all vehicles. All drivers also have been registered by DVL, acquiring genuine licenses. Digitalization in our country should have provided enough room for our institution, the Road Safety Authority, to maybe data from these institutions and make sure these registered companies or these individuals or these institutions are registered fully. Because there's no government institution with vehicles that are not registered DVLA. There's no ride-hailing driver who do not have a license or have not acquired a vehicle that have been registered for DVLA. I have trained over, let's say, 5,000 drivers. And I can tell you, in these 5,000 drivers, you cannot tell me you can't have over 4,500 of them all having genuine licenses. You cannot say you don't have their vehicles license from DVLA. In fact, all this data is available to them in this digital way. So getting us car owners, organizers, fitters to register again with them, it's a waste of time when Registrar General can provide the data of registered company and DVLA can often register with them in this digitalization sector. So I think with that, this fine that they've even brought 3 days ago, it looks a bit not friendly at all. This era that we are in. So I want to plead with them if they can reconsider. However, it is the best point for an to make proper measures, to take proper measures, to ensure things are done in the right way. But when we always want to consider the benefit of the government or institutions or things like that, neglect the people who are going to suffer in the long run, it will help. Because I'm telling you, very soon after this law or implementation of this law, we will go to organizations that will be closed down. People, institutions, or shops that will want to help us, fitting shops, when we are broken down on the road, will not be available again. And there will be seen many vehicles parked by the roadside. So the problem we are going to face or have will be more than what they think we have already. Okay. If they want to start registration.
So Wise and Ms. Abbas, you've made some very good points. Let me try and get a response for you. Kwame, you heard them. I don't know whether you have a response for them. First, let's start with whether this registration will come with a fee.
Well, let me clarify that this exercise is not at a fee. The announcements put out so far has not indicated that anybody is required to pay a penny or two for the exercise. Number two, institutions. Today, if I walk to the Ministry of Transport and request to find the number of airlines operating in Ghana, I could have a verifiable data on that.
Right.
It's quite a shame that in 2024, I may not be able to have such a data for the number of transport companies operating within our road space. So let's get it. We are not targeting individual drivers or vehicle owners who operate or come for training under WISE. And Abbas, we are not dealing with the individual drivers that come or operate under GPRTU as a banner. We are looking at the institutions providing services. To the argument that these institutions have, say, registration at the Registrar General, I'll say yes, today, if I really want to import drugs, again, let me use that analogy and even that which happens under the aviation sector. Right. But I must be known to the Food and Drugs Authority. Why is that so? Because the regulator, beyond the primary registration, you have the requisite competencies to provide a sort of service that you intend to so provide.
Right.
And that is the basis. So we are not focusing on individual drivers and vehicle owners. That data, admittedly, is available at DVLA. But I'm saying that if I go to DVLA today, is the DVLA able to tell me that we have 100 transport companies in Ghana? That is not available. And that is exactly why this exercise is important.
So, for example, the organizer, it will not matter whether you are small or big, whether you have complicated machines or not. So long as you provide the service, you must register.
I missed you, Elton.
No, I was asking, for example, for the organizer, I'm asking whether it will not matter whether you are big or small, whether you have, the necessary tools to do your work or not. You simply have to register, so long as you provide the service.
Yes, Elton, out of a number of crash investigations we have carried out over the years, what is certain, for instance, is that in some cases, we trace these type bursts and blowouts out of the inefficiencies or lack of capacity of those who provide the service. Ordinarily, when you fire by an organizer by the streets, sometimes take the trouble to try come to you as a surprise that quite a lot of them, out of survival instincts, provide to do so. Ask yourself that of all the public agencies in Ghana, who has the responsibility so to ensure that the guy filing by the roadside to provide such a critical service has the competency to do so? There has always been a gap.
Right.
So yes, you need to meet some minimum training requirement. You must have the equipment stock. The equipment stock must have been calibrated by the Ghana standards of your permit. To Pastor Wise, a lot of these vulcanizers, for instance, do not even talks about at the Registrar General's Department. So that's a real intent and purpose for this exercise. And at all material times, it is to serve the public good. I mean, those of us joining buses as passengers, those of us having to access these services as vehicle owners, and so on and so forth. And so, as part of the implementation process, I mean, I cannot begin to exact control when I do not even have the base information as to who is providing what.
Right.
And to address quickly the issue raised by Abbas, you see, safety is a gamut of issues, and we are dealing with every facet of it. Over the last year, we have carried out actions that are targeted at pedestrian obstructions, for instance. And we have different communication and rollout plan for that sector. What we are doing now is to try to account for the various institutions providing transport-related services within the sector. And yes, when we get to know these institutions, that is when we are able to enforce the laws on speed limiters that my very good friend Abbas talks about. So if I don't know how many institutions are running transportation, how am I able to even enforce the basic requirements that are required under the law? Today, a lot of them, I mean, what they call floating drivers of floating vehicles, they do not belong to any transport company or transport union. And the starting point for trying to regularize that space is to, first of all, get to understand who is providing this service, at which corridors or on which corridors, in order that when you have certain internal control measures that will influence the road user experience and passenger experience, you may be able to implement them through these same safety leaders or leaders of these transport companies. So that is the intent. The intent is not targeted at the individual vehicle owners that have acquired license or have had their vehicles registered by the DVLA. Let me give you a very quick example, for instance. If I have a commercial vehicle, I visit DVLA twice a year for purposes of roadworthiness certification. Question is, when I haven't visited DVLA, who has the primary responsibility to ensure that the vehicle remains continuously or consistently fit for purpose? Those are operational matters. And those matters can be cured to a greater extent when we have information on which entities or unions or companies are providing these services and what sort of time between the year or the life of your license or permit they are doing what is required to keep the public safe. That is the intent.
All right, thank you so much. Kwame Atuahene, Director of Regulation inspection and compliance at the National Road Safety Authority. We also heard the PR of GPRT Abasi Moro and Wise Togbo with co-founder online ride-hailing groups, and they had concerns responded to. I'm just hoping that this is just the beginning of this discussion. Hopefully in the days to follow, we'll delve more into the LI and what exactly it seeks to do. This is a pause here on Jones. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about the air in Ghana and why that air probably is reducing your lifespan. Stay right there.